Okay, welcome councillors to the first meeting of 2018. We're all rested and ready to go. Now, prior to this evening's agenda, we have done this informally, but I think just for a case of record, if we hold a minute's silence for our colleague and indeed friend, Ed Googe. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Right. Moving on to the first item then. Apologies for absence.
From Councillors Tony Marvin and Dean Fry.
Yeah. And any declarations of interest or items on this evening's agenda from any councillors? No, none declared. Okay, item 3, so Town Council minutes of the 11th of December for approval. Make sure all councillors have read and checked. No amendments forthcoming. Okay, I'm happy to propose those. Seconded by Councillor Geddes. And a show of hands, please. Okay, unanimous. And then for your information, planning committee meeting minutes of the 18th of December and 9th of January. So moving on to item 4 is finance report.
Finance report as usual, with one addition in section 5 this time, which I'll come to in a moment. The Town Council's accounts at the 31st of December was 214,309. The bank accounts have been reconciled to that date. And during December we paid out a total of 39,324, and 5,547 of which was through the Salisbury Gardens account. I've made a note because there's a rather large payment to the Botanic Gardens to indicate that 2 of the 3 invoices making up that amount are for work done much earlier in the year. So we're now up to date with them. I've also noted for the benefit of new members that the £995.27p paid to the Public Works Loan Board is a twice yearly repayment in respect of a loan which the tennis club took out with the Public Works Loan Board some years before I started here, and we make that payment twice a year and we receive the same amount from them each of those 2 months of the year, so there's no net cost to the Town Council. The full list of payments made during the year is attached to your report as usual. We received £20,867 during the month of December, of which 4,886 came through the Salisbury Gardens account. I've noted, as you'll see, that of the £15,981 attributable to the Town Council loan account, the largest section of that is a grant from the Arts Council England of 12,316. I've reported the grant to you previously, and that's 90% of the total, with the other 10% due when the project is completed. later this year. And the Section 4 provides the usual information on variations against budget for the financial year for the first 9 months of the year. Expenditure £7,292 above budget, and receipts 9,338 better than budget. Now, Section 5, for the benefit of new members primarily this, but some time ago Councillor Brian Lucas endeavoured to secure sufficient funding to facilitate the purpose of the venue then as it was for the boxing club, the Old Methodist Church on the High Street, and a substantial sum of £72,000 was pledged by residents in response to that appeal, and the Town Council agreed to hold the funds. We've repaid elements of that over time since the sale couldn't progress, and in any case the building is now declared not fit for use. So we've made payments, as you can see from the record, and we can't get the seats. We've made payments of £5,500 during the month to reimburse some of those residents whose funds we still hold. And they don't appear in the Town Council payments quoted above. These are accounted for within our bank account separately from the accounting for the Town Council. We still hold, just so that you're aware, the sum of £5,555, which will be, we think, refunded very soon.
Okay.
So, that's the report, Chair.
Thank you. Any questions or comments on the finance report from members? No? Don't think I did. No? Okay, so I'll look for approval of those then. Proposer, please, to take those. Councillor Lucas. And seconder, please. Councillor Hill. And a show of hands, please, Councillor. So then item 5 is the management of financial risk.
Yes, you've been aware of this, of course, because it's an annual event. It's the Town Council's responsibility at least once a year. You can do it more often if you choose to, but the statutory requirement is that you once a year review the way that we, on your behalf, manage the risk of the rest of the council's, Town Council's and as usual, this report has attached to it the financial risk assessment that we have been using for some years now. It's a very standard financial risk assessment. It's based on one used by our auditors in the past, made available to us by our auditors in the past. It reflects the current practice within the office, and the council's internal auditor is content with it as a defence against any dangers there may be in management finances. And you are asked to review it. You've had it in time to do that, to comment on it if you wish, to suggest any amendments or additions to it if you think there should be, and then to approve it, so that we are in a secure position for the coming 12 months.
Therefore, any comments, questions, amendments? No? Our auditors are happy with it too.
Disappointing, really. That's 4 years in a row.
Good, excellent, then. Thank you. That's some information. Okay, so therefore, if we're happy with it, if I look for a proposer to accept, Councillor Geddes, and a seconder, please. Councillor Logan. And a show of hands for that. Thank you. more trending matters. So item 6, the strategic plan summary.
Yes, I won't drag you through the section 1 of the report on this item. It provides the background to the strategic planning that Council did in the last 18 months to 2 years, based on work by our Economic Development Officer, Nick Cox, and that is just for a matter of record. What became clear, apart from the fact that it was an excellent strategic plan fully approved by the Town Council, was that it was the kind of document that few people were likely to read, given its complexity and coverage. So there's been some thought given, as you can see, to a shorter summary in more straightforward language, which you had circulated with the paper as a draft for such a document that can be more widely distributed and used at events like our consultation meeting on the 29th of January, and certainly the staff have an interest in using it in connection with funding applications. So the summary is for you to consider, comment on, discuss as you wish, amend as you like, and if you want more time, that's absolutely fine. It doesn't need to be approved tonight, but we want to make some progress with this to ensure that it's a document we can make use of as soon as possible.
Yeah, thank you. So once again, councillors, as stated, so this did come in your papers. I'm wondering if anyone does have any amendments, additions.
There's on this page, the second page, protecting our natural environment and ecological benefits of Ventnor. We're claiming that we have less rainfall than anywhere in the UK and the most sunshine of anywhere in the UK. Well, it's not actually true, although it's close to. I think we should know the egg, the pudding, perhaps under-egg it a little.
Yes, I must admit.
Okay.
Yeah, reduce anxiety and depression is a bit of a...
Yeah. Where are we with that one?
It's under ecological benefits of Ventnor.
Okay. Yeah.
Where I approve, I don't think we're proven. Yeah.
No. Okay.
I think something headed in there as well about sort of what we're doing for the residents as well.
Yes, specifics might be.
Yeah, so mentioning the St Boniface Fields, that's the only thing I'd criticise. Other than that, I mean, it's certainly different to the very poor attempt that you see from some, distributors, the sort of the old classic, what do you call it, the sort of art, paint art sort of style. It's refreshing to look at something that looks professional.
Yeah.
It's certainly something talking about what we're doing for residents. Even though it's in there, just somewhere to sort of summarise, this is what we're doing and this is how we're spending.
Okay, because this came out of July, didn't it? So we can update it to that. Yes, certainly.
On reading that, I was agreeing very much with Billy that it's a worthy sort of starting point. I mean, but we need to then move down into specific projects.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's go to that. Right. Anything else anyone's come across at this point, or is it best to give ourselves a few days, give it a read over on email, and then email it to Clark, and then we can collate all those comments?
I mean, I would like to see, I think, all the sustainable single-use plastics coming in there. I mean, I think that
yes, that's something I'm thinking. Certainly we need to be looking at to the seafront, that's for sure. And obviously that comes around with some of the work going on in the Esplanade with the fountain coming in.
Yeah, all ties in.
Looking at that sustainability. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So if we give you a week then?
A week will do, won't it? Yeah. And then
comments?
Yeah, to take it forward, and then so any comments to David within the week?
What, by email?
Yeah, that's fine, and then we can collect those together. Okay.
I'd just like to say I've got a good looking plan. It is. I think it's the details, just the right level of detail. Pick up some specifics, but it's tells you it's not too general, but it's
I do like this one, but I would also, one of the suggestions I would be putting forward is that we have an even shorter version, basically a bullet point version that people can pick up and absorb.
Rightio. Well,
actually more than
As
much as anything.
This isn't about projects, it's a strategic document.
Yes, but you know, to actually highlight the aims.
Projects are drawn from that, and the problem with the list you suggest is actually quite long.
Oh, it could be endless if we,
But I can send you something like that, because there is something I use with the geography A-level students just to bullet point that. So that would work in certain circumstances.
yes, I'm not. What I'm suggesting is a not for every occasion one, but certainly things like when we have the town meeting, where you have a very quick visual, absorb it in seconds document. I think that would be useful.
I do like the picture as well.
As it happens, is this one? I have one in my pocket. There we go. Right. I must remember wear another blazer with the A-level students. Okay, so we can update that and send that forward too.
Yeah, if you can send that to me as well, please.
Okay.
Good. I'll be interested to see this.
Sure. Excellent. Thank you. So we'll move on from that one. So, as stated, item 7 is indeed one of those projects, and the update on Boniface Fields development.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The short report shares just to make sure the numbers are up to date with the progress so far. As we agreed when we started on this path, it will be a slowly evolving project because there are all sorts of unknowns to be identified and pinned down. And we've made some progress with some of them, but not with all of them. The porter cabins, as you probably already know, the men's sheds have now occupied the older of the 4 porter cabins, which is good news, and they're pretty much at home already, I'm happy to say. We are also in discussions with a group of local artists who are looking to take on the 2 porter cabins that are on top of each other, and so those discussions are well advanced, and we hope that they'll be concluded very soon. Very positive, and the group concerned are looking to provide studio space for local artists, as well as training sessions and educational opportunities within the broad field of the arts locally. It's something we've been keen to promote for a long time because, as you know, the town has a strong association with the arts, and the focus for that would be highly desirable. We now, thanks to the work of Jim Toogood, we now have completed site drawings that enable us to begin to plan the site in some detail. We've established so far that there are going to be enough room for 20 or so allotments, Jim?
Yeah. 20 or 22. Yeah, we can get in there. Sensibly, we can do that.
If those of you know the site think that's fewer than you might have expected, given the size of the land and the size of the allotments we're proposing, the reason for that is the need to provide access to the site for emergency vehicles and fire service in particular, that also need room to turn round within the site once they've accessed it, and that takes up quite a lot of space. But nevertheless, we at this stage have room for 20. That site drawing isn't finalised. It's something we can work with in more detail as we go forward with it. The current intention, given where we've got with that, is to make a feature of the availability of allotments part of the 29th of December meeting, including an issue of expression of interest forms that we'll ask people to fill in within a given period of time. We'll, in the meantime, develop a process for allocating responses to however many expressions of interest we get. So that's the current thinking with that. Planning permission, as you know, planning permission for the 3 more recent porter cabins expires on the 9th of April this year. But we are moving quite clearly now to a stage where we can ask the planners for a pre-application meeting, and Jim has put that in process already.
Yeah.
And I think that's
it. Yeah.
we have made, I should have said, we have made a lot of progress with the costs, so we know a lot more about the various items that need to be carried out on the site before it's really ready for proper occupancy. And the Mayor and I also had a useful meeting with the other White Council's Ashley Kersner about the basis on which we use the land. And those are ongoing discussions.
Mr. Mayor, I'm a bit suspicious of projects which evolve, and because the money can get out of hand. I think we need very urgently need a budget, even though there are a lot of things which are unknown. It's not beyond the wit of man to put a sensible figure to those.
Yeah.
Because although the cabins are going ahead, that's fine. We've got no planning permission. We've got the status of the field is not yet established in terms of it being educational rather than allotment. So there's a lot of unknowns, and I would hate for us to sort of launch it into something that eventually, A, we can't get approved, or B, works out to be far more expensive than we planned. So though the cabins, that's fine, that's good, because they're an established thing and we own those. But the allotment field and the possible access to the allotment field, I see as very risky financially. And so I would ask us not to move on anything until we've got all of the things in place, including all the finances in place on the allotments. And that's the problem, because if we're going to say to the people on the 29th, how would you like to grow some lettuce? They need to know that it's not an immediate thing.
No, indeed.
Yeah. So
no, that's right. I think we had that discussion at the informal meeting, didn't we, about where those costs would be. I think Councillor Toogood, now we're pretty much there with costs, aren't we?
Yeah, in answer to that, I've provided approximate prices only because, like yourself, I've been in the industry since I left school. But I've been in contract on Wednesday and one Thursday, so I would have thought by the end of next week I'd have final prices tied up. I'm pretty sure.
And with concerns with, as Clark says, about the conversations with our White Council, so the deputy leader is responsible for resources. I believe Councillor Hutchinson is aware and is not saying no.
That's not goodwill to the project.
Yeah.
My concern really are the finances that I'd like to hit the town council and make sure we're aware of the scale of those before we sort of march on.
I can add to that.
Yes.
Councillor Toogood's done a lot more work on costs, and we're confident that the total comes at or about where we discussed at the informal council meeting. There's no anticipated significant increase on that at this stage. The intention, because as Councillor Toogood said, he has more meetings this week, is to bring that list, which I've got a very detailed list now, thanks to that work, and we'll bring that list to the Assets and Services Group next Tuesday for detailed consideration. And no spending will take place until the council's approved the spending for it. Apart from that, I have no authority to authorise that until you said yes to it. But for your comfort, the expectation is it will come in around that mark of 40,000 in total, offset by £10,000 worth of anticipated income in the first 12 months. So that gives us an income of an anticipated net cost of 30, and that will be further offset by the council has already allocated £5,000, you'll recall, at its meeting in October for initial expenses incurred in connection with the site. So we're back to the 25, which is still the issue to be considered for the budgeting purposes for next year. So we don't think it's out of control, Councillor, but we understand the concern about it.
Yeah, I'm just unhappy when there's so many unknowns, uncertainties, but nonetheless we're pushing on.
Yeah.
It's not normal business practice.
Any other comments?
Yeah, can you confirm still the allotments and the mapping out that's been done? It still only considers the lower area, so the upper area is still carte blanche.
Yeah, we wanted to really leave the upper area alone until we know where we're going further. Really.
Understood.
We're not about artificial grass area. If possible, we'd like to keep it.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of areas we could sneak some more in, but at this stage, if we leave it open at the top.
I think the usage on the top field would be much more sort of raised beds and could be easily accessible, a lot more community use, if you like, rather than individual.
But nothing's going down in pen or pencil yet for ideas.
No, not at that point. So it's still open.
My personal feelings is that the top area should become like a multi-use games area, or something like that. That's what
and as Councillor Duguid says, we would hope to maintain that area there, and there is some room for innovation, I think, around the outside of those now porta cabins.
There's still a lot of space up at the top, isn't there? So that's still good. Okay.
And just to clarify that the allotment size is 6 metres by 4, so it's not your traditional allotment size. So, again,
it's not reasonable size.
Yeah, not 10 rods. Or, not that I know, not that I ever remember what 10 rods was.
So my final question on it then is regarding the times, the anticipated time span now. There's still the hope that people could be in there with their forks and shovels ready for this season.
Yes, I would hope so. I would hope right at the beginning of the season, which would be proper.
Yes.
Shall we say April? Yes. But don't quote me. But
for the things that get planted towards the end of the season. Okay.
I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, it's actually if this is realised, it's fantastic.
Yeah, of course. No, I think that's key. We have to keep to that timeline. Otherwise, we've lost it for a year.
It would be a shame. It would be a great shame.
It's very much. Yeah. And of course, we're still looking as well, obviously, to use that site with the extra porta cabin, which we can use flexibly to deliver youth service activities up there. And not forgetting, of course, because we've got the grant from down to the belt, for ecological activities for the young people in the town too. So there's plenty of scope there for that. Which is probably where that upper site might come in.
Yes.
Good. Anything else there? All right. We're happy enough with that.
Thank you very much, Jim, for your hard work.
No, we just did that. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so item 8 is the Haven and the recent annual report.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, obviously nothing we need to do or have to do, but because of the significance for the town of the development, I thought it worthwhile ensuring that information was passed on and understood, and there was a chance to comment on this if that was needed in these circumstances. So here you have, as you know, the accounts and the annual report and accounts for 2016-17 for the Haven Harbour, as adopted by the Isle Council Cabinet last week. So I don't think I need to add anything because the information is in the report, which is attached. The focus has been the net loss of £136,000 a year, which the Isle Council have needed to provide. Unsurprisingly, the Cabinet noted that it was unsustainable and have put in place a consultancy arrangement to find more sustainable and less costly ways of dealing with the bulk of that cost, which, as you know, is the seaweed the harbour is ideally created to collect and keep.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Observations from the annual report? I mean, it's certainly something that, you know, the reading is, fairly much the same year on year. It's, of course, County Hall now has undertaken the idea of seeing what can happen with it, with the same company that built it in the first place, which is interesting.
I mean, this is our own making, really, isn't it? I'm not building things properly in the first place, isn't it? Really, so
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah. So once they have their amendments, we might see a fuller report. We haven't seen yet that study from Royal Haskellin, which was made in early summer. As this report says, there are still amendments to go to that. So, Councillor Lucas.
The otherwise council says it's unsustainable, which is sort of a code word for we ain't going to pay for it in the future, and that is very worrying. Ought we to mention it to the residents that it is a danger area, because I mean it's very important to the town that haven, not necessarily that it makes it navigable, but it takes the seaweed out, because it has a terrible effect on the tourist industry when you've got high summer stinking seaweed. Yeah. So I think the residents need to know the danger of this one.
Yeah,
it's not a given that it's going to be on forever. 136,000 is a lot for very little to show for it.
Yeah, it is, and it's come to us, in years past where what we're dealing with. It's in the report, isn't it? Sodium hypochlorite.
Very dangerous.
That's correct. Yeah. Is at dangerous levels.
Hydrogen sulfide.
Hydrogen sulfide. It was at dangerous levels, I think, when we looked at this 5, 6 years ago.
People who were
close to. So one would presume that the appropriate authority, the local authority, still has a duty of care in that respect. So. If they were just they couldn't just walk away from it.
So unless the consultants come up with a cleverer, cheaper way of getting rid of the seaweed, that's a permanent problem, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And I think that, one would hope they're looking at that there is another way of dealing with it, but I presume not at this point.
One of the things that surprised me is that although the cost of the seaweed is the biggest single problem at 75,000, and that still leaves 61,000 as a loss in any.
For other reasons.
It's nothing to do with seaweed. It's to do with it is a very serious issue for everybody concerned. The contract, as you may have noticed, has been removing the seaweed has been extended to 2020.
What was it?
At a cost of 75,000 a year is now its cost.
So, as you say, the other costs are their operating losses and that thing.
The report will be interesting, and obviously we're speculating as soon as we get to see a copy. If we get to see it.
Yeah, indeed we will push for that copy. Backing up Councillor Lucas's comments that it's important for the town and the townspeople to understand what the problems are there beyond the smell and the seaweed.
And they seem to be looking at preventing the seaweed getting in. Is their brief, isn't it?
Okay, so in that case then, recommendation to be, as Clark says, we will still push for the draft report once it comes available, and we can also highlight our concerns that it's operating losses outside of the seaweed removal. Yes? Yeah, we're all happy with that. Okay. You're okay with that? You've got the wording on that? Yeah? Okay, that's I've proposed that one then, and do I have a second go? Councillor Logan, and show of hands, therefore. Thank you. So, item 9 brings us to the local care plan.
Yes, well, you know much about this as I do. And again, like the payment, it's not something that the town council has any direct responsibility for or engagement particularly with. But given the council's determination to be as involved as possible with the My Life a Full Life programme and what flows from it, again, I thought it should come for your consideration, and so that if nothing else, you were fully aware of the progress to date with moving on from the My Life a Full Life programme through the local care plan, which is its next stage, which will ultimately become part of the Sustainability and Transformation Plan, known lovingly as the SDP, which will soon be upon us in full force. So the local care plan has now been approved. It's no surprise to anybody that it comes with a number of significant risks. So because the local care plan itself is fairly technical, to put it mildly, I've identified the risks because they've been expressed in the accompanying report that went to the Cabinet last week. And they're worth just a few minutes with perhaps, Chair.
Yeah.
So the first one is simply the ongoing problem that doesn't just affect the island, but affects health and social care services nationwide, is that the services, the delivery of the services is the responsibility of a number of major partners who each have their own agenda, structure and governance arrangements. Specifically the OLI Council with public health as part of its operations these days, the CCG, the Clinical Commission Group, and the NHS Trust in our case. The way the island appears to be endeavouring to solve the issue of three separate services is through setting up a local care board, which brings those three organisations together, yet again, in a different capacity, having responsibility for the delivery of the local care plan. The part that concerned me from the Cabinet report, not that it's anybody's fault, it's not a blame culture this, but at the end of paragraph A, you'll note it says, I'm quoting from the Cabinet's report, that each partner remains responsible for its own governance arrangements for the delivery of service transformations. And some people might regard that as a code for we'll do what we want and you can do what you want. Hopefully the partners will be able to overcome the traditional silo operations which have restricted some aspects of the way they've gone about delivering the services. I did try to find out more about the local care board, but as paragraph B indicates, there's no information available on the websites of the three partners as yet. So I have asked the communications consultant for the My Life a Full Life programme, with whom we have a very good working relationship, where that information might be accessible, and she has passed it on to the person who's responsible for passing it on to us. As yet that hasn't been effective, but I hope it will be, because it would be good to know a bit more about exactly how that critical structure is going to work. Section C is the obvious one, as you can see there. The paper the Cabinet received identifies the fact that the combined island health and social care system faces a funding shortfall of 52 million by 2020 if changes aren't made, and that, as you know, is only now 2 years away, so it's something I'm sure the partners will be concerned with. The acute services redesign section D of this risk list is almost certain to be, and the Mayor may wish to comment on this, but almost certain to be the element of the local care plan which is of greatest concern to residents and most important to immediate significance to residents, as that's listed as the first priority of the local care plan, and what their proposals are will be a matter for full public consultation before any implementation is done. The same applies to the second priority, which is the community service redesign, which involves co-location of delivery of services within the island's localities. And those of us who've been close to that will take some convincing that that's going to be very effective very soon. So anyway, we hope it will be. And section 3 just notes that consultation on specific changes is a commitment that everybody has made. So there will be proper opportunities to comment on the details in due course. And I wanted you to be aware of this because this is the framework now that will affect everything that happens over the next 2 years. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I won't, unless people have got comments or questions, but I might come in with other things.
What I'd like to know, how much it's cost for someone to tell them or tell herself, they should have looked at this 10 years ago when the recession started. This is nonsense, isn't it? To a point.
To a point it is. I mean, I think you'll find...
How much does it cost?
It's meant to be saving money, Jim. Yeah.
10 years late, isn't it?
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I can comment on the acute service review is being led clinically. So it's a consultant from St Mary's, Steve Parker, who's been here for a number of years, and I've been quite impressed with the way he's gone about that, because he's always suggested that actually this is about changing the way, and this is still the jargon you will get from all the organisations concerned, that it's changing it to make it more efficient. Now that's you can argue the rights and wrongs in whether that might or might not happen. The thing is, within that, there are certain things that will go off island. They will. All cancer care will move, head and neck injury will move, and certain other surgical elements will do. But they are working quite hard to, and this again where David mentioned you've got the SDP coming in, they're working quite hard to sort of consolidate a Solent alliance, if you like, with Southampton and Portsmouth trusts, where as the workforce goes forward, those people will, when they sign up for a job within any of those trusts, if indeed those 3 trusts stay as one, if indeed nothing else happens, they will assent to moving within that area. Certainly, what you're looking at with the NHS at the moment is becoming a very much Wessex-wide operation. That's where it's centred in Winchester now, and that sort of includes the island. So that's outside of the trust here at this point. But certainly, if you're looking at NHS England and those improvement services, it's centred in Winchester and will cover that whole area. I mean, there was some element, as you can imagine, as David said, about residents moving off island for care. Obviously, there is the cost and the travel implications of that, and that certainly has been looked at already within the ASR, and there's lots of conversations around, do we have our own ferry, do we have our own helicopter, and of course none of that is going to save money, and indeed will it be viable, because you're looking at possibly transport costs just within that, you're looking at probably something around £6 or £7 million a year, and that's an added cost, so that's not going to save any money. So and as always with the NHS, consultations will come, but they'll come once the NHS understands what it's doing. So I think with the ASR, you were certainly looking at first public consultations was meant to be around September. That hasn't happened yet because it has to go to NHS England and the improvement board within that. So at this point, we're no clearer. With the CSR, the Community Services Review, as David says, you know, we've been here with My Life for Life for 4 or 5 years now, and the graphics are still there; they're still lovely, but we're still waiting to see those implementations within that. I know there's ideas around with the council and the CCG and with the trust, looking at one public estate. So you're looking at there's a space in Pyle Street at the moment. They're looking to make that a sort of medical hub, very much like the Our Life system has suggested over the last few years. So as you know now, the island is in localities. So we're the south, where we lead on that health and wellbeing forum for parish and towns. You've got northeast, which is led by Ryde, and Freshwater in the west. So within those, you're looking at 6 community hubs within those 3, so 2 within each one, effectively. Now that's pretty much comes down to 6 GP practices within each area. So that's what you're working with at this point. So there's certainly work going on in Pyle Street in Newport around that, and of course, as we know, in our area, it's looking at the old barracks system in Sandown. We, the Health and Wellbeing Forum, met at the Sandown Barracks site in October maybe, but there's no work yet is ongoing. So it's very much a virtual situation at this point. You know, services haven't been collated. Not in some situations they may well have, but they certainly haven't all at this point. It's a slow process, and we'll find out more about it as we do.
But your Only Transport, I understand, are going to try cutting the minivan down, aren't they, from Portsmouth to Southampton and cancer patients?
Yeah, that was I think that was I know about that. That was a system where the Island CCG gave money to a charity.
Yeah.
But there was an understanding that charity would do something to make that service better, and they didn't. They went another way on it. So they either didn't buy it or they leased it, or whichever way it was. Forget me over there.
So I went to a charity the other day. They're trying to raise money to have it run.
Yeah.
And there was some surgeons there, hospital there.
And where in other areas where that's happened, you know, the process has worked, and that system has become sustainable and carried on, whereas this one didn't. So, but I don't know the ins and outs or the legalities of that. So.
It looks to me, correct me if I'm wrong, please, that there is a silver lining here, and that's the frequent mention of, for example, here, multidisciplinary locality services.
Yeah.
And I have heard before there's a suggestion of boosting the GP surgeries around the island. Do you have, from the conversations you've had, do you have any idea if there's any likelihood of more services arriving in Ventnor?
There would be, I mean, other services.
For example, the Sandown Barracks you mentioned, was the idea to put a medical centre there?
Yes, so that becomes a co-located centre, as they call it.
Yeah.
So that would work across so NHS services and health and social care services. So you would have, if you like, multidisciplinary teams within an area. If you know, like a youth offending team is made up of probation, police officers, psychologists, social workers, all in one space, all acting like that. So the idea is very much the same way. Around that. What you might get within GP centres, the way that operates now through CCG is if a GP practice decides it needs certain services, then it will go to the CCG and suggest that, and with evidence to say so. So if you've got a surge in diabetes, or you may have more infant mortality about something, so they would then look, can we have services to relocate there? That's what you would look at.
The problem with the silver lining, from my perspective, is that idea of multidisciplinary local delivery has been the core of the My Life a Full Life programme for 4 years, and there's still little sign of it.
Sure. I'm currently doing quite a little bits of work with Age UK, and all the people that I meet through that, they're all having a terrible time going to St Mary's and or Southampton as well. Certainly. And sometimes it's for very, very, very small things. Yeah. You know the situation for very old people getting from Ventnor to St Mary's to be there for 5 minutes to get back again. Yeah. It takes the best part of the day. It's a huge stress, and very often already it's Age UK who are stepping in to run the people backwards and forwards. So yes, I fully accept what you say, David, but let's hope that there's some realisation of that intention.
Yeah. I can give you a bit of good news. I'm not usually good on good news, but I try to be. The next meeting of the South Localities Forum, which is where we've been organising meetings of town and council reps, if you remember. The next meeting in 2 weeks' time. And Maggie Oldham, the chief exec of the trust, has agreed to come and talk to that meeting. Okay. That's a really good sign. It is. Especially as it's in the middle of her inspection period.
Indeed, yes. And CQC will be in a 4-day inspection on that time as well. So it's obviously with it requiring improvement over the last inspection and for the last 4 years. But yeah, so that is interesting.
And that's one in Rookley, right?
Yes, there's one in Rookley.
So we're expecting from house for this one.
Absolutely. I've asked people why they weren't coming. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So
okay.
yeah, we're talking to Tony. I think we are. Yeah, we've got everyone there. I think. Yeah. And the other thing within GPs, I mean, what they're doing, of course, is where you've got, if you're saying working with Age UK, so you've got care navigators within Air UK to try and locate that. You've got healthcare assistants within GP centres, practices now. And there's another one which again is a navigator, but I'm not quite sure of the wording. And they are very much looking at how these A work together, and then B, which is the best system that works. So, and then that comes in the public health with local area coordinators. They're still looking to run that course as well. But certainly, I think you'll also look at, when we've been looking at, obviously, we're trying to relocate the library. We're thinking then, we should have some private spaces there, because there may well be the case that things like health trainers come down the line, where you have to follow a particular method to help your management of your condition, and they might well be looking at, well, you don't need to come and see the doctor for 10 minutes. What you need to do is have this motivational person who will tell you to carry on what you're doing. Yes. So we would look to put some space in for that, just purely because the need would be there, not necessarily that we agree with that's the way to go.
Yes, as highlighted here.
Yes,
self-care prevention.
That's right, self-care. Yeah, and as you've seen from Isle of Wight Council's latest thing, is I thought was quite a pertinent quote was, people should be responsible for their own care. It's going to happen. Yes. Okay, any more on that? We're not, no, but just, so that's, keep an eye on that, because that changes day by day. The next Health and Wellbeing Board is Thursday morning, actually, and so we've got the South Wight parishes next week. Okay. So, item 10 is the Isle of Wight Council's 18-19 budget consultation, or lack of.
That's a very good one-word summary of my report. There is a consultation on the budget, which is actually open, as this report says, until later in January. And so I felt obliged to ask you if the Town Council should or wanted to make a response to the consultation The problem with it is, certainly from my perspective, is that although it's described as a consultation on the budget, there are no figures available yet about what that budget will consist of. There are no clear indications of where the savings which are highlighted in the consultation documentation. As you know, a total of 7.5 million is the headline savings required in next year's budget, but there is no confirmation yet of what those savings and where those savings are expected to come from. And we've been accustomed to commenting on budgets without knowing what the proposals are. But instead, as last year, the Isle of Wight Council described it as a high-level consultation in which people are invited to make comments on priorities, what the council's priorities should be or should not be, and questions amongst the 25 questions in the online consultation response survey, such questions as, do you think the town council should try to make, the Isle of Wight Council should try to make money? So it's a difficult one. All I've been able to find so far about what the budget proposals might include that would be of significance for the Ventnor and for this council. As you can see, the Cabinet received a report at its meeting last week, which is their summary of performance up until the end of September, the first half of the current financial year. And at that stage, they are predicting an underspend of 540,000 at year end, with children's services expected to overspend by 17,000 and a further predicted overspend on the floating bridge, you'll know something about that, of 708,000, but those are more than offset by predicted underspends elsewhere, in a total of almost 2 million. But as you see from section D, the report is also clear that the forecast remains susceptible to considerable risk, as it puts it gently, the most significant being pressures in children's social care and the delivery of this year's savings targets in adult social care. The report also includes an indication, another report, on the local council tax support scheme. You'll remember this is a consultation that was held earlier this year and on which the town council did comment. And that was a set of proposals about by how much to reduce the maximum contribution to the council tax requirements from the poorer families on the island. And in fact, the Cabinet have confirmed that they will reduce it from 80% at present to 70% next year, which will give them a saving of 570,000 at the expense of the poorest families on the island. Interestingly, the report on that matter says that 75%, the maximum level would be reduced to 70%, and although the report claims that the majority of respondents to the consultation agreed with that proposal, there were only 217 who did respond out of the population total of a lot more than that. And the appendices report indicate that 40% did not agree, and that 5 of the 6 town councils who responded, including them, were also opposed to the reduction. Nevertheless, it went through, which is a sign, in my view, of the significant pressures in achieving the budget reductions they're looking for. And that was confirmed by a letter from John Metcalfe, which I've now attached to the report. I didn't have it at the time of writing this report, from John Metcalfe, the Chief Executive of the Borough Council, dated the 11th of January, and received by the clerk on Friday, last Friday, listing 8 areas where, as the letter sweetly puts it, town and parish councils might wish to consider funding on behalf of their community. Oh dear, how much code can you stand in one night? So that's the list of indications where they're looking for the savings to come from. I think we can probably take it from that and from the comment and from the quotation in the county press of the week before last, the week before this one, of the council leader telling Ryde Council that it was the administration's view that town and parish councils should fund youth work. That's not exactly what the relevant statutory legislation says. It would seem to indicate that that's regarded as the principal authority's responsibility, but however, and significantly for us, it raises in bullet point 8 an unanticipated issue in respect of the Ventnor Park. As the Mayor is well aware, I have an email from Lee Matthews, the officer responsible for Principal Parks, in December the 4th, assuring me that there will be no need for Ventnor Town Council to budget for 2018-19 any amount for the increased work that would become necessary in Ventnor Park to maintain the current standard of work when the new contract of the Borough Council comes into force, because that contract wouldn't start until the 1st of April 2019. The letter from John Metcalfe has brought that forward by 3 months and lands that issue in the next budgetary year. So I think you will need to return to that matter at the budget meeting next month. In the meantime, I have reminded both John Metcalfe and Lee Matthews of the earlier correspondence, and Lee Matthews has apologised that his email in December wasn't clear about what was actually going to happen, whereas in fact it was actually the opposite of what was actually going to happen. But how much code can you take in on this? I've had my share. So there are going to be some serious matters for all town and parish councils to consider. Yeah?
Thanks, David.
What do you think he means by item 5, provision of opening times in libraries? I don't quite understand. I mean, we said reduction of opening times.
No, it would mean the town and parish councils in those areas with community libraries funding more of the opening times. There will otherwise be a reduction. My understanding from the conversation with the head of the library service, again, who may not be being told what's actually going to happen, Rob Jones, last week, in preparation for tomorrow's meeting of the library steering group on which we're represented, as you know, I can assure Rob Jones that he is anticipating minor reductions on the library's budget, but nothing that is likely to affect the arrangements in Ventnor. But he did say the amount of information they've got is limited at present.
That seems to domino across all departments of the council, that they don't know as much as anything else that's coming down the line. Sure.
As with all consultations, if you ask somebody whether a saving can be made in your area, you'd say no, don't you?
Yeah.
As when I took part in that consultation, it was not something you could really give them any useful information about. No. Just so that they consulted.
Unfortunately, it's still the case now, isn't it? It's very difficult, frankly, to have something intelligent to say when we all know what the global situation is with the budgets and where it's all coming from.
But I would, you know, I would oppose that item, library museum service provision of opening times, certainly for Ventnor, which is now a partnership library, and the only one as a partnership library rather than the community library, because we pay the majority of the cost now anyway. So we would be looking at anything that was going to stop any more opening times there. We would oppose quite quickly, I think.
What I find particularly interesting in here is I was hearing an interview by the deputy leader, or I think it was on the White. I notice here the predicted overspend related to the floating bridge and children's services are noted here. It actually says in the report here that currently these are more than offset by predicted underspends elsewhere, totaling 1.965 million. However, in his interview with the press, he said that the floating bridge money, and I'm assuming obviously the overspend in children's services for that matter as well, would be provided through the reserves. So I'm a little bit concerned actually by the accuracy of the report, because I'm especially looking at this from a resident's point of view. If I was looking at this, I'd be wondering, well, is it coming from the savings? Because paying for something through underspending is one thing, and providing it through reserves is another.
I can respond to that. There's no suggestion that the quotation only refers to the floating bridge, about use of reserves. There's currently no plan that I've heard from anybody to meet the children's services underspend from reserves. The problem they have with reserves, as you'll know from other information in my report, is that they are now very limited because they've used them successively to plug the hole in budgets over the last 3 years. So that whereas they once had 40 million in reserves, they've now got 8.5. And everybody is clear up there that they can't go below 5. So there is now only 3.5 million to plug in the other holes they choose to use it for.
Yeah, I still find it quite confusing, you know, looking at it. Sort of seems I'm getting one story on here and another from someone else.
They're not two stories. There are two different reports that I've used as source material for that, and the predictions about the proposed underspend and overspend are just that, they're predictions, the forecasts in their words. It's like me telling you, as I do every month, I expect to have a year balance of 130,000. It's based on the best possible information I've got. But if you were to decide to spend 40,000 to put Boniface Fields ready in time for next month, then forecasts would change. And forecasts are, when it's 6 months away, are not reliable, which is why they're hedging their bets, I think.
The significance is you haven't got any other figures for any other department, and that's what we're all working in the mist.
Said earlier on, probably it's going to be, you know, we're going to be just as knowledgeable as anybody else on the day when it comes out. I mean, we're not going to know, are we, until it's sort of released, and then we can have a proper discussion about it.
And increasingly year on year, that's how we work it. Yeah.
Do we know how to ASDA money? No one talks about that now, do they?
I don't know off the top of my head what happened to the ASDA money. That got spent
It's not available for
it's capital.
revenue, it's capital fund.
Okay.
It's not available for and they have used some of it. I can't remember how much or on what sort of stuff.
Probably on consultants to tell them where they're spending money.
I think the other big significant one for us here as well, which again it underlines our thinking about that at the informal budget meeting, is the youth services. All current agreements end in March 18. I think that's the end of youth money from the Isle Council, as David stated. The leader's comment about county parishes. Now there could be, so again, there could be opposition to that. And I think we would take part in that opposition. It would again maybe get into quite a nice conversation that we did with libraries a few years ago, and indeed beach cleaning, about what a statutory duty might actually be. Again,
Quite
so I
frightening,
think
isn't it?
us looking forward to
It's.
delivering our own news service is exactly where we should be going.
I think we should warn our local people the budget's going to go up massively the next 2 or 3 years, isn't it? We've got no choice at all.
And already it's going to happen to the most vulnerable already.
Sadly,
You know, again.
Yeah.
And the interesting one to me was road safety services. Now, I don't know what road safety services are. Is that, is that traffic lights? Is that
Crossing off.
crossing off? You know, that's again, it's highly worrying. Environmental. But then interestingly, you come across a provision of local subsidies for local people on car parking. So maybe they're just following our lead as to how to do those things sensibly. So yeah, certainly parks maintenance we will oppose on that, because I mean 2 years, 2.5 years since we've had verbal confirmation that wasn't going to happen.
It was mentioned before about Ventnor Park. It costs in the region of £40,000 a year.
Yeah,
is that correct?
that's our estimate.
38. It's actually 38.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean, if they were to reduce to the bare minimum, what is the bare minimum? Are you aware of the standard?
Yes, grass cutting and litter picking, including emptying bins.
Okay.
And they value that at 10,000 a year, which leaves a gap of 28.
That is the enhanced landscaping that they perform there, which is why it wins awards.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's quite useful, Chair, just to check with you that the approach that the Mayor and I have taken in discussions about this over the last 2 years with the Isle of Wight Council is that Ventnor residents might well be prepared to fund the difference, given the importance of the parks of the town, provided that we have control of the park. The feeling is that simply asking to hand over a 28k to the Isle of Wight Council to do with as they wish is something that's much more difficult to persuade people is a sensible thing to do. But it's just a question whether that's supported around the table now.
Yeah. Which is certainly around the same thing we've done with our grounds maintenance, and indeed with the help of the assets working group. We've lowered that cost as it's been to us from the beginning.
The park is licensed for marriages.
Is it?
Yes.
No.
I mean, that must be. So somebody must pay somebody for that
Yes.
privilege of getting married there.
Yeah.
How my council presumably.
Civil licenses.
I discussed the bit about parks in that letter and with the clerks at Ryde Council today, because they have very big principal parks. Like the whole of the Esplanade is treated as a principal park. And she said that they had been told by the deputy leaders of the council that it's the administration's policy is not to hand over anything which is income generating. And so they won't hand over Ryde Esplanade because it generates income. The only income that Ventnor Park generates for the Isle of Wight Council is the £3,000 a year we pay them for the putting green.
Yes, so I think they'd see the putting green as then separate to the park, wouldn't they? We'd still pay a lease, so we can just put it in together. Yeah.
Well,
But that's assets which are currently making revenue. It doesn't preclude anything that potentially makes revenue. So I know last time I tried to get married, you pay a lot, don't you, just for the location. So if it's, and there's not that many locations actually which are licensed to old marriages, is there? I don't know if it's the kind of business the town council wants to get.
Maybe a little learner for us.
We're generous, I think. Can the mayor perform marriages?
Only if I've got a French accent, I think. Yeah. I've often looked at my counterparts in France and thought that's a lot more interesting. Not that this isn't interesting, but it's a lot more interesting. You've got to go to people's weddings and do, and say you're good enough. If you could do that with me, I don't know. So, what we would propose to do then is have a response to this along those lines we were talking about. So, that we would oppose that youth services still have a statutory duty. We're slightly concerned about park maintenance, and under no circumstances will we be looking at our library services disappearing. As the bullet points.
Is it worth to reiterate the fact that council taxes are regressive taxes? Is it worth to reiterate that?
They've already done that.
Obviously, they're not going to stop the times for us.
No.
There's no way of responding to the consultation because we don't know anything yet.
No.
These are just things that the town and parish councils might like to consider.
Yes. And there was a meeting tonight at County Hall, but of course it clashed with our. So we might well get some information from colleagues over the course of the evening tomorrow morning. Okay. Vote on that one? No? That's what we'll do. Yeah.
What you're talking about is something different from the response to the current consultation, isn't it?
It is, yes.
The current consultation is about this high level.
Yeah, yes, sorry. Yeah. Okay. Well, we can send in our own high level letter.
Even higher level.
Yeah. One that has read between the lines.
What? No white lines, exactly. Yeah. Just words. Okay. We can come up with that and then present it to members. Yes.
Yeah, well, yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I do what I'm told, as you know. We've got until the 29th of January to respond to the consultation.
That's right. Excellent. Okay. Thank you. Passed on that one. So then, item 11 is our town parks report.
Very short, happily this time, because of Christmas break and things. So, gifts to nature, as the copy tells me that my preposition is the wrong one. We met the Assets and Services Working Group with Matthew Chatfield, who now works for the Island Charity of that name, and previously employed by the Isle of Wight Council, outsourced to the charity, with responsibility for managing 30 sites across the island, countryside that used to be the countryside management function of the Isle of Wight Council, which Matthew led. It was a really interesting discussion, wasn't it? It was useful, very open, and good arranging. There are, as you know, see here 3 sites in Ventnor, 3 down Manson Hill and around. So we will have further discussions in due course about that. Item 2 confirms that I've done what was decided at the last town council meeting, namely informed the IWELT that we won't be in membership from the 1st of April this year, and we are now a development partner of the Hampshire Association of Local Councils, along with 4 other town and parish councils on the island. Number 3, the consultation evening of 29th of January. Alison, we're now reaching the 100 mark, aren't we?
Yeah, we're over the 100 mark for the community. I think in total the numbers sitting around about 130, that's including everybody, that's staff and council as well. Yeah.
What's the capacity of that hall?
That's what we were worried about last week, wasn't it? Yeah. I think 200. Until we get to 200, we won't worry.
Yeah. It's really good, well done. Yeah, excellent. And just the information about the meetings, the working group, so you know they're working. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much, Bob. Okay, nothing in public forum. Don't take anything from David, do we? No? Okay. Right. So, Therefore, I declare this one over. Thank you very much, councillors.